There's a couple of things that I think we should really get aligned on before they try and start, feeding us these different narratives, because it's narrative season. It's always narrative season when it comes to the college football world, but that volume is about to get dialed up quite a bit. So I want to make sure we're on the same page here so we can kind of keep our footing as we get rolling here to the college football season. The first thing I want to talk about as it pertains to LSU, I want us to all be reminded and all remind other people and bring them with us that Brian Kelly is only in his second year at LSU. Why is that important? Because in year one, their over-under win total preseason was like 7 wins. And then Brian Kelly did what Brian Kelly does and won a whole lot of football games. They got to Atlanta in year one. So I think there's this perception that LSU is just going to be at this cruising altitude for the rest of his time in Baton Rouge. And I want to get ahead of this. If LSU doesn't look like an SEC title contender, let's say they win 8 football games, not a bad season. It's better than you were when he got to LSU. But if they were to take a few steps back, I don't think we should panic. I want us to make sure that we all kind of just take a deep breath and understand that Brian Kelly is at LSU for the long haul. They're going to be really successful for the long haul, but there's a lot of people that have a microphone and that type stories for a living, and they have been waiting to just kind of feed these narratives. They thought they could do it last year. He won a lot of games, so they didn't get to, but they're going to say things like, man, Brian Kelly, year one, they kind of caught fire, but I think the book's out on him right now. Yeah, we all knew that he wasn't cut out for the SEC, and they'll probably circle back to that accent because people have just been wanting to get more material out of that, so they'll probably go back to that and say, look, he was kind of faking it the whole time. He wasn't cut out for this. You'll also hear the players don't respond to the way that he coaches. Brian Kelly, he's too old school. This is the new era of college football. They're not going to respond to him. Those are the things you're going to hear. Let's not let 2023 and any lack of success that they could have, I'm not saying they will, I'm not predicting this, but I'm saying if they do take a step back and lose some of those close games they won in 2022 and 2023, let's not panic. Let's not forget what happened in 2022, which was, like I said, you got to Atlanta in year one. You beat Nick Saban in year one. Also landed a top 5 class in 2023. They're rolling right now. Brian Kelly, the way that he does things, it is a proven process. It's tried and true. He's got a 72% win percentage on his career. So the way that he does things works. And just because some of those games went their way last year, if they don't go their way this year, it's not something we got to talk about with Brian Kelly and reassess their situation. He is in it for the long haul. And I honestly think LSU is going to be really good this year. But again, if some of those games that fell their way last year, they were 3-1 in one-score games, if they go to 1-3, or heck, if they're 2-2, let's not panic. Let's not forget what happened this past season. All right? Another thing we got to get aligned on here. A lot of talk about 2 teams from the same conference making the college football playoff. And we all hear the same 2 conferences, the SEC, which is fair, the Big Ten, which is also fair. I'm not here to be down on either of those conferences. But I think we have to also get aligned on the idea that there is potentially going to be 2 teams from the ACC that could find their way into the college football playoff. We're not predicting it. I'm just saying we all need to be aligned on this before we find ourselves in this situation potentially. And the situation would be as follows. Florida State and Clemson, from a roster standpoint, getting choked up talking about it. From a roster standpoint, the 2 best teams in the ACC, and you would expect them to meet in the ACC title game. Again, that's all preseason talk right now, but you expect them to probably have a rematch in the ACC title game. The world where they could potentially both get in the college football playoff is if Florida State and Clemson both run the table. Obviously, they play week 4, so one of them is going to drop that game. But they meet back again in the ACC title like we were talking about, and the team that lost that game round 1, so let's say it's Florida State that beat Clemson that first week, and then Clemson beats them in the ACC title, and you have 2 ACC teams with 1 loss. One was undefeated the rest of the season except for 1 game, and one is a 1-loss ACC champion. They're going to have a very real argument to be in the college football playoff. Now, you probably need a little bit of help, and a lot of this is dependent on what other dominoes fall around them. But there's some quality wins out there if that situation does arise, where you have a 1-loss ACC champion and a Clemson or Florida State is toting 1 loss from the other. Because Clemson, they play Notre Dame, they play South Carolina. Those are 2 really solid wins. Florida State, game 1, we talk about it all the time on here. It's a playoff kind of game against LSU. If you can win that game, it's a nice feather in the cap. So I think there is a very real support around this argument for them to both potentially make their way in. Now, it's not unrealistic, but we're also not assuming it's going to happen. Again, a lot of dominoes got to fall, but I just want to make sure we're all kind of on the lookout for that situation presenting itself. Caleb Williams and USC have college football playoff aspirations. They have national title aspirations. They are not being shy about it. They don't need to when you got the best player in college football playing quarterback for you. But there's this narrative out there that the defense needs to be better. And that's a narrative for a reason. It's true. Okay, that's a true statement. The defense has to be better for USC in 2023. But the end of that sentence, I think, is crucial with what we say after. The defense has to be better in 2023 in order to has to be better in 2023 to win a national title. Absolutely the case. However, I don't think the defense needs to really be that much improved in 2023 for them to get to the college football playoff and to win the Pac-12. And the reason why I know that is because they were good enough last year with that subpar defense, to call a spade, to get to the college football playoff. And people at USC probably feel this way as well. We've talked about it on here before. If Caleb Williams, it's a big if and woulda, shoulda, coulda, doesn't count, but if Caleb Williams stays healthy in that Pac-12 title game and he's able to be as dynamic as we saw him be all through last season, Caleb Williams and USC, they're playing for a college football playoff. They're in the dance. They're in that top four. They probably beat Utah. So I understand they didn't look great against Tulane and all that, but I'm just saying he JanSported them last year all the way to that Pac-12 title game. Lower body injury. It is what it is. I think the offense and the system is going to go through Caleb Williams, as we saw it did last year. He's going to have every opportunity to just carry this team, backpack style, back to the Pac-12 title game, and I think they have a very real chance. Heck, I picked them to be in the college football playoffs. So do they need to have a defense improved to win the national title? Yes. Would you like the defense to be improved? Yes. Did they do a lot through the portal to be improved? The personnel was way better on the defensive line. Another segment for another time. But at the end of the day, Caleb Williams is good enough in his own right to get USC to the Pac-12 title game, to the college football playoff. Period. Mic drop, the end. Now, here's another thing I want to talk about, staying in the lane of quarterbacks. Joe Milton is going to be the starting quarterback for Tennessee. We've known that for some time now. We saw him just do numbers like he's Goodwill Hunting in the Orange Bowl against Clemson. He's going to be the guy. I want us to make sure we're all on guard against this thought when he starts rolling. If he does start putting up big numbers, people are going to be very quick to say, outside of Knoxville, Joe Milton is a system guy. Joe Milton, he's just a benefactor of what Josh Heupel's drawn up with that offense. Like, yeah, that's nice he's putting up numbers, but he's a system guy. Couple things incorrect with that statement. The first is it just doesn't make sense. Like, to call a quarterback a system guy, every quarterback plays in a system. Any offensive coordinator worth their salt is trying to put a favorable situation for their quarterback in 11-on-11 football. You're trying to create matchups. You're trying to make his life easier. You still ask a lot of him, but if you're not putting your quarterback in position to succeed as an offensive coordinator, what are you doing, man? What are we even drawing this up for during the week? What are we game planning for? To make his life difficult? Don't think so. All right, so that's the first part of this. The other part of this is the offense for Josh Heupel goes through the quarterback. Like, there's kind of this narrative out there that it's so quarterback friendly. You just line it up, plug and play whoever you want in there, go ahead and slice and dice, you'll be good to go. It's not the reality. This system, yes, it creates matchups. Yes, they work the boundaries a lot. Yes, they play with the hashes, 100%. But even so, this offense goes extremely quickly, high tempo, meaning as a quarterback, you got to be on it, man. It is NASCAR fast. We got to be quick. We got to be good with everybody getting lined up. We got to know the play call. We got to deliver the protection. I mean, we got to do everything as the quarterback to make sure that we're all on the same page as we snap the ball in under 20 seconds. The other part, you're asking the quarterback to make throws. Like, yes, you're trying to run the football and mess with the safeties and put those linebackers in conflict and all that. But even so, man, if you can't hit the shot at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we got it open for you. It doesn't matter if we kind of teed the defense up. It's about creating situations, but the quarterback has to make good on those situations. You got to hit the open shot. So all this talk about quarterback friendly, this, that, and the other, like, it still goes through the quarterback. If Hendon Hooker is sailing the ball out of bounds when Jalen Hyatt's running wide open down the sideline, like, it's an incompletion, and we got 2nd and 10. Quarterback is extremely responsible for what happens in this offense. Last thing, too, Joe Milton, has played in this offense before. So if you're going to say Joe Milton is a system guy, I would say, well, was he a system guy when he got benched? Was he a system guy when he struggled within this system? You're telling me it's all about the system and Joe Milton's just a non-factor. Well, why didn't he have success his first time around? Argument kind of collapses on itself. See how that works? So if Joe Milton has success, and I expect him to, it's about Joe Milton. Yes, it's about the offense. Yes, it's about them running the football. There's a lot of complementary factors within this offense, as there is with any good offense. But to take away from whatever Joe Milton accomplishes by calling it a system guy, I think you're just kind of throwing stones. So I wouldn't do that. I don't think that's a realistic argument. And I want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page here, because a lot of this buzz, if some of these things break this way, you're going to hear Joe Milton's a system guy. If LSU loses a couple games, man, was Brian Kelly the right hire? Let's make sure we're on the same page, all aligned as we get rolling here into the beautiful thing that is the college football season. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.